So, meine Damen und Herren, wir sind schon bereit für unsere nächste... Ich habe mein Wasser vergessen. Wir sind schon bereit für unsere nächsten Panel. Alles ist alles ist ein bisschen spontan heute. Aber so machen wir das. Es geht, es läuft. Also wir haben zwei besondere Leute dabei. Ich muss meine richtige Dinge hier rausholen. Wir haben natürlich einen König und seinen Sohn. Oder zwei Könige. Oder richtig zwei gute Schauspieler. Du kennst sie als King Ecbert und King Aethelwulf. Mr. Linus Roache and Moe Dunford, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Right.
It's hot. Got your water. We got everybody hydrated. That's good. How's it going so far?
It's
lovely. Early.
What a perfect place to be.
Isn't it though? Like it's great. Like the castle ruins, the big. Are they doing like the night stuff over in the back yet? There's like axe throwing and I think there's some. I saw some knights running around with their armor on. Oh my god!
And every.
It's hot. Oh, it's got to be hot in that plate armor. Oh my god. Oh my god. I want to know. Well, first, I want to know, Mo. But you're Irish, correct?
Correct.
I think there's some.
Hey! Now we're talking. You!
I feel like there should be some kind of law for an Irish actor to play an English king. Like, shouldn't that be against the law?
Against the law, probably not, no. But it was a great role. And yeah, it's all shot in Ireland, so I'm Irish. The whole show was shot in Ireland. You know, we have Canadians and English and people from all sorts playing Vikings.
Yeah,
and
true.
Australians playing Vikings.
True.
So you may as well have an Irish guy. You know,
Playing the English king.
We're not that far apart across the water, and you know, so that's my standing on it.
Linus, how do you feel about Irishmen playing an English king?
Well, I think it's called acting. So, and Mo was the right man for the job. So, yeah, no, just to say, shooting in Ireland was one of the great things about this show, because the people, the culture, the crews, it was unbelievable. And I've called Ireland now as my second home, and I'm hoping to go back there. So give us a job back there, man.
Speaking of acting, Linus, your dad, big, like super. I mean, OBE. I mean, you can't get like more of like prominent. I don't know how to say prominent, but
they could make him a knight.
Yeah.
Or
for acting,
a lord.
Is that any pressure on you?
No. I mean, I don't know if people even know who my dad is in Germany, but he's been in the longest running soap opera in the history of television.
And he's the longest person to be.
He was a young man when he started in 1962, and he's still in the show, and he's 92 years old, and he drives himself to work. I know, it's unbelievable. So yeah, if people say hopefully I've got his genes, but I'm not sure. He did a skydive last year at 91 years old. He jumped out of an airplane. So yeah, that's more pressure for me than the acting. You know, the fact that
you have to go skydiving when you're 91.
Stuff like that.
Bravo. And then the question that I don't know. I feel like watching some of the recaps and old episodes in coming up to this. Speaking of fathers and sons, did Ecbert love Aethelwulf?
It's a touchy subject.
Gosh, you're throwing a hard question
right?
in the morning. I mean, I don't think Ecbert is a very loving man. He's a very selfish human being, and he used and abused his own son for his own advantage. But the difficulty was that I loved Mo, And so I think the loves came through anyway.
So how was, well, I guess, is that an acceptable answer?
Yes, of course it is. When I started, I first heard Linus's voice outside the cast tent, and there's a bunch of background actors, and you're normally accustomed to actors being in their own private area, but Linus was sitting outside and asking these background actors about their lives, about what they did. And I hadn't even seen Linus's face, but I'd heard his voice, and I'd heard the curiosity, I'd heard the intrigue, and he was such an easy guy to get on with, but is always pushing the scenes, and is always trying to come up with some fatherly son connection with Aethelwulf and Ecbert, and as well as it being easy going outside of the acting. Linus was always trying to find the interesting angle for where they would go as a father and son team. So it was 4 years of switching that up, and it started off I was yes sir, no sir, three backs, full sir. Those were pretty much my lines of dialogue. But then we got more and more great stuff. Yeah.
Just say back at you, because Moe is, you never know who you're going to be working with, who's playing his son. But Moe, right from the beginning, he had this curiosity and this drive. You were always looking for what can we do, what can we do, and I think we met in that. And there was a great freedom in Vikings. In a lot of TV shows nowadays, the writers are the king, and they sit around and they control everything. Or there's lots of producers. We were kind of left alone. It was us and the director, and you were free, and it allowed a creativity, and you could say, hey, can we just run that again? Or keep the camera running, and let's just do it now and just mess it up a little bit. And you never knew what they were going to use in the edit, but at least creatively, we always came out going, well, we gave it our best.
And it was such a rare thing for a show called Vikings, where you're playing English kings, prince, king, and they're not the so-called protagonists, but yet they had this whole interesting side story in Wessex that developed over seasons, and it is a show about fathers and sons, with Ragnar and Bjorn and the rest of the sons. But over those 4 years, I really loved when Ecbert would send out his son on a suicide mission. He didn't love him, but what I loved about Aethelwulf is he would come back, and then Ecbert would give him a more difficult task, and that would keep going for 4 or so years. It was a fun time.
And the one person who's not here, who needs to be acknowledged, apart from Michael Hurst, who created the whole thing and wrote every single episode, Travis Fimmel, as Ragnar, he set a standard, I think, for everybody. You felt like he came to work ready to make it the best possible moment, and he brought this edge. It was never safe with him, which is what I thought brought in the beginning that because we joined season 2. Season 1, when I watched it, when I got offered the role, I watched it and thought, this feels alive. It's very real. You're connected to the culture, the Viking culture. You felt it. It's like a lot of that was driven by Trav.
Well, and it's an interesting show because it's a lot of it's based on actual people and things like that, and like if you get into history, like none of these people existed at the same time like they do in the show, but it's still, you said, there's this edge, there's this fierceness to it, there's this you can tell it's made by people who are making a show because they love the show that they're making. It's not like just trying to churn out episodes like some things are, where okay, your call sheet is you're there for 2 hours, you show up, you do your 2 hours, and you get out of here. So yeah, I think you can see that in the end product. I feel like.
Well, I think that's a lot to do with Michael Hurst, because it's kind of unprecedented that one person writes every episode of a show, and so it was all in his head. And the amazing thing about Michael is he's actually very approachable. So a lot of actors would go out, have a meal with him, drink a bottle of wine, and start pitching ideas, and he would take the good stuff, and you'd suddenly find the script came back the next day and there was a little bit of what you said was in it. So it felt very collaborative, although it was one man leading it. We were all sort of contributing to it.
What would you like to see him do? Like, what's a project you would like to work with him on again? like a different project.
I just did Billy the Kid with him.
Really?
Which I didn't know that he was obsessed with Billy the Kid. And so it's a 3 seasons of it. There's 2 seasons out, and they're going to do the 3rd with a wonderful young actor called Tom Blythe playing Billy. He was in the latest Hunger Games movie. So he's in love doing that at the moment, and now he's going to be writing with his son, Horatio, who was in Valhalla. They're writing stuff together, and they've got a few projects, and I won't say what they are because I shouldn't, but I've read one of them, and it's great. So I think there's a lot more coming out of Mr. Hurst.
Good. What was the casting process like?
We would have had a different sort of process, right? Would we? Would we have the same different thing? I mean, I'd only done one movie before Vikings, and I had gone up. Whenever I got out of acting school, I'd gone to Frank Moselle, the casting director, and Michael's show was called The Tudors, and I was in The Tudors for 2 episodes. It was my first ever thing. But I had gone for so many roles when I got out of college, so many spear carriers, so many soldier number 1s, so many. I just wanted a gig. So I'd done one role in The Tudors, and then Vikings came along, and I really wanted to be a Viking. Because I'm from a town in Ireland called Waterford. And it's the first town that the Vikings invaded when they came to Ireland, right? So there's this connection going back. And I was up for this role who gets his head cut off in episode 1 of season 1. And I got a call back for it, and I really, really wanted it, you know? But I didn't get the call back, and I was then up for this role, Aethelwulf, and it just so happened it would go on and on and on, and that was the casting process. The character became richer, but I had no idea what it would lead to. I was just told that Linus Roache would play my dad, and he's the King of England. I was like, cool.
By the way, that one movie that he'd done before Vikings was a movie called Patrick's Day, which he won Best Actor in Ireland for. So he's a modest man, and it's if you get a chance to see that movie, it's a beautiful film.
Linus, what was your casting?
Oh, my casting, well, it was one of those years where, as an actor, I couldn't get arrested. Nothing was happening. I'd gone to LA. I was nearly got this, and they might want you for this, and get ready. You're going to be on a plane to go for something, and nothing was happening. And I went to Manchester in England to see my dad, and my good mate Jerome Flynn, who's in Game of Thrones. He was in Ireland, and he said, "Why don't you come over for a weekend?" So I came over. We got in a car. We drove to Connemara. We got very drunk. We had a wonderful weekend, and he said, "There's a show here called Vikings." He said, "I'd love to be in that show," because he's a Viking in his heritage, you know. And then, lo and behold, I got back to Manchester on the Monday. I got offered 2 jobs on that day in Ireland, out of nowhere. It's like the universe wanted me to go there, and one of them was Vikings. And that was it. I got on the phone with Michael. I said, "Where's this going?" And he said, "Well, we don't quite know, but he's an interesting character. And not a lot known about him, but we're going to have a lot of freedom with it." And I said, "Well, sign me up," and that was it.
I love that you were talking to Jerome about the show, and he's like, "I want to be in the show so bad," and then you turn out that you get the part, and he was never in it. Although I suppose being in Game of Thrones is probably a pretty good consolation prize.
No, it wasn't too bad. He was, yeah, it was all, and he was shooting a show called Ripper Street at the same time. He was doing both at the same time. You know,
he did a really good episode of Black Mirror.
He did, yeah.
But messed up, but really good. Yeah. Wie immer, wenn Sie haben eine Frage, Sie können hier vorne bei dem Mikro stellen. Janine, don't be shy. Sonst, ich
Don't be
dich
shy.
immer.
I know it's really hot out there.
It's hot, yeah. Move slowly. Drink water. Go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Janine, Mikro ist aus.
Voila. All right, here we go. Like previously, thank you for coming. It's always a highlight to see the real actors here. It's like Hollywood coming to you, not you going to Hollywood. Like, I'm in awe of your talents, especially for me, British, Irish, English-speaking actors are just so amazing. And not only what Vikings did to all of us, you brought us so close to ancient history, but not only just the actors, but also history. Because I'm traveling a lot, and I also already had the conversation with Moe about the Celts in Ireland and so on, and visiting the Ting and so on. So thank you for that. And as I'm also watching other series like Peaky Blinders, they really get to you, and your acting is just so amazing. Did it just start like one day you woke up and said, I want to be an actor, or is it because your genes, your fathers, mothers are into acting? And what do you think about Valhalla? I'm asking everyone this because everyone thinks, but we're happy to still have some Vikings there.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah.
So first, thank you. Good questions. First, what did the two of you think of Valhalla? And then second, what got you both into acting?
Yeah.
No, the series, the Vikings.
Oh, I
Valhalla
thought you
series.
meant the actual Valhalla. As far as I'm concerned, this is Valhalla. Well, I'm in Valhalla right now. This is wonderful seeing all ye. You know? Look, I just grew up watching movies, and I watched the old Ernst Borgnine, Tony Curtis Vikings movie that was from the 60s, and I grew up in a pub, and that was on, and Ragnar was in that, and he was thrown to a pit of wolves, and it really played with the imagination, you know, and a lot of the old classic movies now, that like Braveheart or Excalibur or Reign of Fire, they were all made by our producer Morgan O'Sullivan, and they were all made in County Wicklow, all these classic movies, and it's just something, it's very like the nature here with the background and the historic truth makes a really exciting movie, and I always just, you know, a kid's dream of wanting to be in something like that. And I guess I wasn't that great in school, so I tried the acting. Yeah. And I wound up in this show.
What got you into acting, Linus?
Well, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, when I grew up in an acting family. My dad was sort of like a national icon as I was growing up as a kid, so it was like he was like a pop star. It was kind of weird. And then my mum was a very respected actress in the 60s, very avant-garde, doing sort of experimental work, and so I grew up around it. But I did find my own way to it, and my sort of moment of revelation, I think, was I was watching the TV one night back in the day when you only had a few channels, you know, and there was this young man in a red jacket, and he took his jacket off and he walked into the house and he opened the fridge and he took a bottle of milk and he rolled it across his head, he pulled his head. And I didn't know who that was. I'd never seen James Dean before, but I went, who is that? What is that?
What was it? Was that?
That's
that
Rebel
was...
Without a Cause. That's Rebel
Wait a
Without
minute,
a
I
Cause.
thought Rebel Without a Cause
He
was black
comes
and
in, he
white.
takes the milk out of the fridge and he just rubs it over his forehead. It's like, it was like a whole new world of performance that you'd never seen before, where people were being stagey, but suddenly there was this, and then I got into Clift and Brando, and I fell in love with all of that, and I fell in love with classical theatre at the same time. So it kind of made sense as what I wanted to do, but I have to say I was brought up all around it, so it must have influenced me.
Well, and that's a very angsty film, Rebel Without a Cause.
I always loved
But
that.
both him and Natalie Wood are amazing in that film.
Amazing.
Who's seen Rebel Without a Cause? If you haven't, go and watch it. It's amazing. It's one of the 3 films that James Dean made.
East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant. Yeah. Which, you know, the end of Giant, it's not even his voice because he died before
in a
they'd
car
done
crash.
the post-production.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Nog kleine vragen. Bitte.
Question about your death scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody got a nipple pin or?
How long did you know that that's going to be your death? And wasn't it a little bit anticlimactic?
Yeah. Well, I probably knew about a couple of weeks, and to be really honest, it wasn't something that I would have expected or would have liked, and I don't think the character would have expected or would have liked. And then when you leaned into that, of course you have a choice, and you could kick up or you could say, hey, I don't think that suits. But the more I thought about it, and the fact that it was unexpected and it's not something he would have liked, he had a very sort of anticlimactic life, and his father was with his wife, the monk was with his wife, his father didn't love him.
Double cuckold.
And He didn't win many battles, but he kept going.
But he was a good dog.
And and I think they really were in a rush to get the season going and the old sprogs to, grow up. So as far as the big philosophical conversation went with the writer, I said, well, let's try and make this work. But it was something you just can jump into and understand the sort of the story of Aethelwulf was he never was going to get some happy ending, But I'm glad from what he learned with his dad that Michael throughout showed that when he did have sons, that what he learned from his father was he could change that, and he did love his sons. So there was enough time there to show that and to raise Ecbert's hope that Alfred was really special and continue that, and and give Alfred the love. So I was happy with that. But the bee, whew. There's no bees here, is there?
Good question, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I do love how there is that scene where he's talking with Alfred and he's talking about your father, and he said, no, your real father, and I love that where he's this dog that gets beaten, always comes back, and whatever, Aethelwulf. But you can see that, of course, he loved his son, even though it wasn't his son, but it was his son, and I love that. But would you rather be stung by a bee or go out like a chump, slitting your wrist in a bath?
We sort of had this conversation last night. You can't really choose when it's going to come, but there's many forms of being brave and being a hero, and we're in a show with shields and swords, but as you said, here's a guy who took on a kid who wasn't his own biologically and raised him as his own, and I thought that was actually, in this day and age, that's quite heroic in a way.
Linus, would you rather have gotten stung by a bee, or are you satisfied with how Ecbert went out?
I'll take my ending. It was actually, I did get to talk with Michael about it quite a bit.
Mm.
And there was a moment there where he was saying, why don't you stay for another season? And he was like, but Ecbert was so tied into Ragnar that it felt like it needed to be so connected to Ragnar's death and him leaving. So we decided, no, let's just do this. And it sort of came about, I think Michael was the first one who had the idea of it happening in the bath. But we didn't know how it was going to happen. And then the idea of the suicide, but the setup before it is what made it a victory. So it was a double twist, which was quite subtle in many ways, but it was very satisfying to do, playing the sort of crazy King Lear king, who's actually doing something quite profound at the same time, and getting to take his own life rather than be a victim of the aggressor. So I was very sad. I thought it was a very satisfactory ending, and I got to spend a lot of time in that bath. I got paid to sit in a hot bath.
You did, in general, get to spend a lot of time in that. There's a lot of Ecbert scenes in that bath.
I got wrinkly skin.
A nice bath. It's a nice bath.
Hang on a second.
How many scenes were in that bath? There's the death scene. There's the Ecbert
Well,
Ragnar
there's the first scene with Ragnar. Then we had multiple scenes where we're all hanging out there with.
There's got to be at least like 8 scenes in that bath. At least.
Yeah, and it was always nicely warm.
Which is good.
Well, I mean, today you couldn't pay me to get in that bath today.
There's a special warm area around where I'm sitting. Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much.
Drink water, stay hydrated,
Yes.
stay in the shade,
Everybody drink water. Thank
and
you.
enjoy the rest of the show. Linus Roache, Moe Dunford, ladies and gentlemen. Machen wir das richtig jetzt. Thank you.